Every airline employee hears it at some point. You're replaceable. It's supposed to remind you of your place, keep you humble, keep you in line. But Captain Richard Stone didn't just say it once. He built his entire command philosophy around it. And today, on Flight 789 from Paris to New York,
Welcome
he
aboard,
would learn
sir.
what replaceable really means.
Good afternoon,
Because the woman
ma'am.
he said it to, she wasn't just any flight attendant. She was the one person in the entire airline the CEO specifically told HR to protect. And Richard Stone had no idea what he'd just started. It's 9:47 a.m. Charles de Gaulle Airport, Paris, Gate 2 E-K23. The Airbus A330 sits at the gate, boarding in progress. Spring sunlight streams through terminal windows. The aircraft gleams. Registration F-GSTX, Air Atlantic livery, Paris to JFK. 250 passengers, 7 hours ahead. The kind of transatlantic route where everything should go smoothly, where professionalism matters, where 15 years of experience counts for something. Captain Richard Stone arrives at the gate, 52 years old, thinning gray hair slicked back with too much product, 4 stripes on his shoulders, Rolex on his wrist, designer sunglasses he doesn't take off indoors. He walks like he owns the airport, confident stride, head high, eyes scanning for anyone who might recognize his authority. 28 years with Air Atlantic, senior captain. He knows people, has connections, union leadership, old management friends, the kind of pilot who believes his network makes him untouchable. He boards through the jetway, doesn't acknowledge gate agents, doesn't smile, just walks. His flight bag hits a ground crew member's shoulder. Richard doesn't apologize, doesn't slow down. The crew member steps aside, says nothing. Richard reaches the aircraft door. The senior flight attendant is there. Aria Patel, 37 years old, British Indian, dark hair in a perfect bun, impeccable uniform, 15 years with the airline. She smiles professionally. "Good morning, Captain. Welcome aboard." Richard barely glances at her, walks past. No greeting, no acknowledgement, just brushes by like she's furniture. Aria's smile doesn't falter. She's seen this type before. The ones who think stripes equal superiority, the ones who forget that respect is earned, not assigned by rank. She turns back to greeting passengers, professional, warm, making eye contact, remembering names, the way she's done it for 15 years, the way that earned her 3 Employee of the Year awards, the way that made the CEO mention her by name in a company meeting last quarter. In the cockpit, Richard settles into the left seat. First Officer Michelle Laurent is already there. 31 years old, French, 5 years with Air Atlantic. She's completing the pre-flight checklist. "Good morning, Captain," she says in accented English. Richard grunts. Doesn't look up from his phone. Michelle continues the checklist. She's flown with Richard before, knows his reputation, keeps things professional, keeps things brief. "Weather looks good," Michelle offers. Light headwinds over the Atlantic. Flight time 7 hours, 12 minutes. "I can read a weather report," Richard mutters, still on his phone. Michelle's jaw tightens slightly. She returns to her checklist. The cockpit falls silent except for switches clicking, systems humming. Richard finally puts his phone down, looks at the passenger manifest on his tablet. 250 souls, full flight, business class packed with executives, premium economy with families, economy with tourists, students, business travelers. "Tell the cabin crew we're boarding fast," Richard says. "I want wheels up 10 minutes early. I've got a tea time at Westchester Country Club at 8 p.m. Need the schedule cushion." Michelle nods, keys the PA to the cabin. "Cabin crew, flight deck. Captain requests expedited boarding." In the galley, Aria receives the message. She exchanges a glance with her colleague Marcus Chen. He's 29, 3 years with the airline, working business class today. "Expedited boarding," Marcus whispers. "We've got families with small children, a wheelchair passenger still boarding." "We'll do what we can," Aria says calmly. Professional pace. She knows the regulations. Boarding can't be rushed beyond safety limits. But she also knows some captains don't care about regulations. They care about tea times, about cocktails, about whatever plans await them on the ground. She's flown with Richard Stone 3 times before. Each time was exactly like this, demanding, dismissive, Disrespectful. Boarding continues, passengers stream down the aisle. A family struggles with overhead bins. Aria steps in smoothly, helps position luggage, gets them settled. An elderly woman needs assistance to her seat. Aria guides her gently, makes sure she's comfortable. A businessman can't find his seat assignment. Aria checks his boarding pass, points him to the correct row. This is what 15 years looks like: calm, efficient, caring. 20 minutes into boarding, Richard appears at the cockpit door, scans the cabin, sees passengers still filing in, overhead bins still open, flight attendants still assisting. His face hardens. He steps into the forward galley where Aria is preparing welcome drinks. "Why aren't we closed up?" Richard demands, voice sharp, loud enough that nearby passengers glance over. Aria turns, maintains her professional smile. "We have several passengers with special assistance needs, Captain. We're boarding at a safe pace." "I said expedited." "Yes, sir. We're working efficiently." Richard steps closer. Invasion of personal space. "I don't think you understand. When I give an instruction, I expect it followed, not interpreted, followed." Aria doesn't step back, meets his eyes. "Our priority is passenger safety and comfort, Captain. We're following company procedures." Something flashes in Richard's eyes: anger, surprise. Most flight attendants would have apologized by now, would have promised to hurry, would have backed down. This one didn't flinch. Richard leans in slightly, lowers his voice to a tone that's meant to intimidate. "You're replaceable. Remember that. There are thousands of people who'd love your job. I fly this plane. You pour drinks. Know your place." The galley goes silent. Marcus, working nearby, freezes. A passenger in 2A, directly adjacent to the galley, looks up from his phone. Aria's expression doesn't change. Professional smile remains, but something in her eyes shifts, hardens. "Of course, Captain," she says evenly. "We'll complete boarding as quickly as safety allows." Richard stares at her for 3 more seconds, waiting for her to look away. She doesn't. Finally, he turns and walks back to the cockpit, slams the door harder than necessary. Marcus exhales slowly. "Aria, you okay?" "Perfectly fine," she says quietly, returns to preparing drinks. But her mind is working. This isn't the first time Richard has spoken to crew this way. She's heard stories. Other flight attendants transferred off his flights, complaints filed. Nothing ever happens. Richard has connections, union protection, 28 years of seniority. He believes he's untouchable. What Richard doesn't know is that Aria has connections too. Different kind of connections. Earned, not inherited. 3 months ago, CEO Jennifer Morrison visited Charles de Gaulle Hub, met with the Paris-based crew, asked about morale, challenges, excellence examples. Aria's name came up 7 times. 7 different colleagues mentioned her, mentioned how she de-escalated a medical emergency last year, how she handled a disruptive passenger who would have turned violent, how she trains new crew members, how she represents the airline. Jennifer Morrison remembered, wrote Aria's name in her notebook, followed up with HR, sent Aria a personal email thanking her for her service. Told HR, "People like Aria Patel are why passengers choose us, protect our best people." And she included something unusual, her personal email address with a note, "If you ever face challenges representing our values, reach me directly." Richard Stone doesn't know any of this. He returns to the cockpit, settles into his seat. Michelle is reviewing the flight plan, doesn't mention what just happened, stays focused on her duties. Richard picks up his phone again, texts someone, smirks, puts the phone away. Boarding completes, all passengers seated, overhead bins closed. Aria walks through the cabin one final time, checks seatbelts, offers assistance, makes eye contact, projects calm. This is her aircraft too. Not in command authority, but in responsibility. These 250 people trust her, trust the crew, and she won't let them down, no matter who's sitting in the left seat. The forward cabin door closes. Ground crew disconnects the jetway. Marcus makes the final announcement. Cabin crew prepare for departure. Aria takes her jump seat, buckles in, watches Richard through the open cockpit door. He's laughing at something with Michelle. She's smiling politely, professional. But Aria sees the tension in Michelle's shoulders, the way she keeps her answers brief. Richard keys the PA. "Flight attendants, I need this cabin secured in 2 minutes. We're pushing back whether you're ready or not. It's a violation. FAA regulations require cabin crew to confirm readiness before pushback, but Richard doesn't care. Aria reaches for the interphone, calls the cockpit. Flight deck cabin crew is secure and ready for pushback. Her voice is steady, professional, gives Richard no reason to complain. But she's documenting this, mentally noting the time, the statement, the pressure, because she's been doing this job long enough to know pilots who pressure safety procedures once will do it again and again until something breaks. The A330 pushes back from gate K23. Engines spool up. Paris recedes behind them. Ahead lies 7 hours, 3,500 miles, the Atlantic Ocean, and a captain who's about to discover that some people aren't replaceable. They're irreplaceable, and the airline knows the difference. The seatbelt sign turns off 30 minutes into the flight. Cruise altitude, 37,000 feet. The Atlantic stretches below, gray, blue, and endless. Passengers unbuckle, stand, stretch, head for lavatories. Flight attendants begin drink service. The routine comfort of a transatlantic flight. Except in the cockpit, nothing is routine. Richard Stone has the aircraft on autopilot. He's leaning back in his seat, scrolling through his phone. Michelle notices. Captain, company policy prohibits personal device use during... I know the policy. Richard cuts her off. Doesn't look up. I've been flying since you were in elementary school. I think I can check my messages. Michelle returns to monitoring instruments. Says nothing, but her hand moves to her tablet, opens the digital logbook, timestamps, captain using personal phone during cruise. She doesn't write it yet, just notes it mentally. One incident isn't a pattern, but patterns start somewhere. In the cabin, Aria and Marcus begin beverage service in business class. Professional, efficient. Aria's doing what she's done 10,000 times, taking orders, serving drinks, making conversation. But her mind is elsewhere, replaying the galley confrontation. Richard's words, "You're replaceable." The way he said it, like she was nothing. Like 15 years meant nothing. Her phone is in her pocket, personal device. Not for entertainment, for documentation, because she's seen pilots like Richard before. They escalate, they push boundaries, they believe their authority is absolute, and someone needs to be ready when it goes too far. 45 minutes into the flight, the call button rings. 12, C middle seat, economy. Aria walks back. A young woman, maybe 25, looks uncomfortable. "I'm sorry," she says quietly. "I'm not feeling well. Nauseous, dizzy." Aria kneels beside her seat, checks her condition, pale, sweating, breathing elevated. "When did this start?" "Just now, suddenly." "Have you eaten today? Any medical conditions I should know about?" "I had breakfast. No conditions, just suddenly felt wrong." Aria makes a decision. "Let me get you some water and crackers, and I'll check if we have a doctor on board." She returns to the galley, prepares a care package, then picks up the interphone, calls the cockpit. Flight deck cabin. Richard's voice crackles back, annoyed. "What?" "Captain, we have a passenger in 12C experiencing nausea and dizziness, checking for medical professionals on board, just keeping you informed." "Is she dying?" Aria pauses. "No, sir, but..." "Then don't bother me unless it's an emergency. We don't divert for upset stomachs." The line clicks dead. Aria stares at the interphone. Marcus, working beside her, heard the exchange. "He didn't even ask for details," Marcus says quietly. "No," Aria says, "he didn't." She returns to 12C, provides water, crackers, reassurance. The young woman sips slowly. Color returns to her face. "Thank you," she whispers. "You're very kind." Aria smiles. "It's what we're here for." But inside, she's adding to her mental notes. The boarding pressure, the replaceable insult, the phone use Michelle witnessed, and now this. A passenger reports illness, and the captain doesn't even ask about symptoms, doesn't ask about duration, doesn't ask about severity, just dismisses it, like passenger welfare is beneath him. 1 hour into the flight, the meal service begins. Hot meals for business class, packaged meals for economy. The galley heats up with ovens running. Aria and Marcus work efficiently. Plates prepared, drinks poured, the choreography of airline service. But then the interphone buzzes. Cockpit calling cabin. Aria answers cabin, go ahead. Richard's voice sharp. Bring my meal now. I'm hungry. Captain, we're mid-service in the business cabin. I'll have your meal to you in... I said now, not in 10 minutes, now. Aria closes her eyes briefly. Yes, sir, right away. She abandons the business class cart, prepares the captain's meal, chicken with rice, salad, roll, carries it forward, knocks on the cockpit door. Michelle opens it. Aria hands the tray through. Richard doesn't say thank you, doesn't acknowledge her, just takes the tray. Michelle mouths sorry as the door closes. Aria returns to business class, resumes service. But a passenger in 4B noticed. Middle-aged man, business suit. He watched the entire exchange, watched Aria drop everything to serve the cockpit, watched her return and continue without missing a beat. Professional, unflappable. He makes a mental note. This crew member is exceptional, but something about that interaction felt wrong. The flight continues. 2 hours in, 3 hours, the Atlantic passes below. Passengers settle into movies, books, sleep. The cabin quiets, but in the cockpit, tension builds. Michelle is monitoring weather ahead. A line of moderate turbulence, 60 miles ahead. Standard procedure is clear. Turn on seatbelt sign. Warn cabin crew. Secure service. Captain, Michelle says, weather radar shows moderate chop ahead. Recommend seatbelt sign. Richard glances at the radar. It's light. We'll punch through. Captain, the report says moderate. I can read a radar, Michelle. It's light. Don't waste my time. Michelle's jaw sets, but she returns to her instruments. Doesn't push, doesn't insist. She's 5 years into her career. He's 28. He's the captain. He has final authority, even when he's wrong. 10 minutes later, they hit the turbulence. Not light, moderate. The aircraft jolts, bounces, passengers gasp. Overhead bins rattle. In the cabin, Aria is mid-aisle with the beverage cart. The turbulence hits, she grabs the cart, holds it steady, a drink topples, spills. Everyone please return to your seats, Aria calls out. Calm, firm, professional. The seatbelt sign finally turns on, 2 minutes late. Richard's voice on the PA, folks, little bit of bumpy air, crew, take your seats. But Aria can't take her seat. The cart is blocking the aisle. Drinks are spilled. Passengers need assistance. She works quickly, secures the cart, distributes towels, helps a child back to his seat. The aircraft keeps bouncing. She holds the seat backs for balance. Professional, controlled. But inside, she's furious. The seatbelt sign should have been on 5 minutes ago. This turbulence wasn't a surprise. It was on the weather radar. Michelle warned him. He ignored her. She finally reaches her jump seat, buckles in. The turbulence continues for 8 more minutes, then smooths out. The seatbelt sign stays on for another 10 minutes. When it finally turns off, Aria's phone comes out, not for personal use, for notes. She opens a secure file, starts typing, timestamps, incidents, details, the boarding pressure at Charles de Gaulle, the "You're replaceable" statement in front of passengers and crew, Richard's phone use during cruise operations that Michelle tried to stop, the sick passenger he dismissed without asking a single medical question, the meal demand that disrupted passenger service, the turbulence forecast he ignored despite his first officer's warning, the 2-minute delay in activating the seatbelt sign that left her exposed in the aisle with a heavy cart, the pattern of disrespect toward Michelle that's been building all flight, 8 incidents, 4 hours into a 7-hour flight. She reads through her notes. This isn't normal. This isn't acceptable. And this isn't the first time she's flown with Richard Stone. 3 previous flights, same pattern, same behavior, but she never documented it before, never reported it because she'd heard the stories. Other flight attendants who complained, who filed reports, who got transferred to undesirable routes, who got labeled as difficult or not a team player, while Richard kept flying, kept getting away with it, protected by his seniority, protected by his union connections, protected by his network of old management friends. But something changed in that galley at Charles de Gaulle. When Richard looked at her and said, "You're replaceable," when he reduced 15 years of service to pouring drinks, when he told her to know her place, something inside Aria shifted. Not anger, not spite, just clarity. The clarity that comes when you realize you've had enough, when you realize your value, when you realize that some battles are worth fighting. And she has something Richard doesn't know about. 3 months ago, when CEO Jennifer Morrison visited the Paris hub, she didn't just thank Aria for her service. She didn't just mention her in company meetings. She gave Aria her personal email address, told her directly, "If you ever face challenges representing our values, reach me directly." Most employees would never use a CEO's personal email. Too risky, too bold, too likely to backfire. But Aria isn't most employees. She's someone who's earned respect through 15 years of excellence. Someone who has 3 Employee of the Year awards. Someone who the CEO specifically told HR to protect. And someone who's done being told she's replaceable by a captain who can't even be bothered to ask about a sick passenger. She looks at her phone, at the notes, at the evidence. Then she looks out the window. The Atlantic stretches endlessly below. 3 more hours to New York. 3 more hours of Richard Stone's command. But after that, after they land, she's not going to Richard's supervisor. She's not filing a complaint with HR. She's not going through official channels where his connections can bury it. She's going straight to the top, to Jennifer Morrison, to the woman who values excellence over seniority, who values respect over rank, who told Aria to reach out if she faced challenges. Well, here's the challenge, and here's the solution. 1 email, direct, professional, documented, with 8 time-stamped incidents, with a first officer who witnessed most of it, with passengers who heard the replaceable comment, with proof that can't be buried. Richard Stone thinks he's untouchable. He thinks his 28 years and his connections make him immune. He thinks telling a flight attendant she's replaceable is just another day at the office. But he's about to learn something. At Air Atlantic, some people really are replaceable, and it's not always the ones without stripes on their shoulders. The aircraft flies on, passengers unaware, Richard in the cockpit, checking his phone again, thinking about his tea time, Michelle monitoring instruments, documenting violations in silence, and Aria in the cabin composing an email in her mind, the email that will change everything, because power doesn't come from rank, it comes from knowing your worth and knowing exactly when to prove it. JFK Airport, 7:18 p.m. local time. The A330 touches down. Smooth landing, tires chirp on runway 31L. The engines reverse, the aircraft decelerates. New York lights shimmer in the evening darkness. Another transatlantic flight complete, another routine arrival. Except nothing about this flight was routine. Richard Stone taxis to the gate, professional, competent, whatever his flaws, he can fly an aircraft. The A330 glides to a stop at gate B37. Jetway connects. Engines spool down. The seatbelt sign turns off. Passengers stand. Retrieve luggage. Begin deplaning. Standard procedures. Standard arrivals. But in the cockpit, Richard is already planning his next move. "Michelle," he says, not looking at her, "I'll be filing a report on the senior flight attendant. Insubordination, failure to follow direct orders, disruptive to command authority." Michelle's hands freeze on her shutdown checklist. "Captain, that Patel woman, she questioned my instructions. Delayed boarding, created friction. It's unacceptable." Richard is already typing on his tablet. Incident report, Flight 789. Date, time. His version of events, the version where he's the reasonable commander and Aria is the difficult employee who needs to be removed. Michelle says nothing, just completes her checklist, but her mind is working. She has a report to file too, a different kind of report, the kind that tells what actually happened, the phone use, the dismissed passenger, the ignored turbulence warning, the disrespect. She's been a first officer for 5 years. She knows what integrity means, and she knows which side she's on. In the cabin, Aria is saying goodbye to passengers. Professional smile. "Thank you for flying with us. Have a wonderful evening." Passengers file past. Most don't acknowledge her, standard, anonymous, but the businessman from 4B stops makes eye contact. "I wanted to thank you," he says, "for your professionalism today. I saw how that captain spoke to you. It was inappropriate. If there's ever an investigation, I'd be happy to provide a statement. Aria's smile becomes genuine. That's very kind of you, sir. I appreciate it. He hands her a business card. David Martinez, corporate attorney. I fly this route twice a month. I know what professional behavior looks like. And what I witnessed today wasn't it. He nods, walks off. Aria looks at the card, then slips it into her pocket. Another piece of evidence, another witness, another voice that says you're not wrong. You're not overreacting. What happened today matters. The cabin empties. Ground crew arrives. Cleaning begins. Aria and Marcus gather their belongings, head to the crew exit. In the jetway, Marcus turns to her. What are you going to do? What I should have done a long time ago, Aria says. I'm going to document everything, and I'm going to send it to someone who actually cares about what happens on these aircraft. They reach the terminal, split up. Marcus heads for the crew lounge. Aria finds a quiet corner near gate B28, takes out her phone, opens her email, addresses it to jennifer.morrison@airatlantic.com, the CEO's personal email, the one Jennifer gave her 3 months ago, the one Aria never thought she'd use. Subject line, Flight 789 CDG to JFK safety and professional conduct concerns. She writes carefully, professionally, no emotion, just facts. The boarding pressure, the replaceable statement witnessed by passengers and crew, the phone use during cruise flight, the dismissed medical concern without assessment, the ignored turbulence warning, the late seatbelt activation, the pattern of disrespect toward the first officer, 8 incidents, so it's all time-stamped, all documented, and then she adds, First Officer Michelle Laurent can verify these events. Passenger David Martinez in seat 4B witnessed the galley confrontation and offered to provide a statement. She attaches her notes, her timestamps, David Martinez's business card photo. Then she writes the closing. I've dedicated 15 years to Air Atlantic. I've always represented our values of safety, respect, and passenger care. Today, I was told I'm replaceable by a captain who demonstrated none of those values. I'm not asking for action. I'm providing documentation, because if this is who we are as an airline, perhaps I am replaceable. But if we're the airline you described in your Paris visit, the one that protects excellence, then this information needs to reach you. Thank you for your time. Aria Patel, Senior Flight Attendant, Employee ID 47832. She reads it twice. Professional, factual, respectful. No accusations, just documentation. Then she presses send. 7:53 p.m. The email transmits, disappears into the digital void. Aria puts her phone away, stands, walks toward the exit. She doesn't know what will happen next, doesn't know if Jennifer will even read it, doesn't know if anything will change, but she knows she did the right thing, and sometimes that's enough. The next morning, 8:47 a.m., Jennifer Morrison is in her office at Air Atlantic headquarters, Manhattan, 52nd floor, Hudson River View. She's reviewing quarterly reports when an email notification appears, personal account. She almost ignores it, then sees the sender, Aria Patel, the name she wrote in her notebook 3 months ago, the name she told HR to protect. She opens the email, starts reading. Her expression hardens with each paragraph. By 9:15 a.m., she's on the phone with HR director. Pull every report on Captain Richard Stone last 5 years. I want complaint history, incident reports, crew feedback, everything. By 10:30 a.m., she's talking to the chief pilot. I need First Officer Michelle Laurent's contact, personal call, no official channels yet. By 11:45 a.m., Michelle is on the phone. Nervous, professional, telling the truth. Yes, ma'am, I witnessed everything Ms. Patel described. I've been documenting similar behavior for months. I just didn't know who to tell. By 1 p.m., David Martinez receives a call from Air Atlantic Corporate. He confirms his statement, offers to put it in writing, mentions he witnessed 2 other passengers filming the galley confrontation on their phones. By 3:30 p.m., Jennifer has the full picture. Richard Stone, 28 years with the airline, 47 complaints in his personnel file, 47 from flight attendants, first officers, gate agents, ground crew, all buried, all dismissed, all protected by union procedures and management friends who'd retired but whose influence remained. and every single complaint showed the same pattern: arrogance, disrespect, safety shortcuts, the belief that seniority equals immunity. Jennifer makes a decision, the kind of decision CEOs make when they remember why they took the job, not to protect the comfortable, to protect the excellent. She picks up her phone, calls the chief pilot directly. Captain Richard Stone is grounded pending investigation, effective immediately, full review, external auditor. And I want Aria Patel in my office tomorrow morning, not to explain herself, to be thanked. 2 weeks later, the investigation concludes. Richard Stone sits in an office with the chief pilot, an HR representative, and a union lawyer. The evidence is overwhelming. 8 incidents on Flight 789. Corroborated by the first officer, witnessed by passengers. Video evidence from passenger phones showing the galley confrontation. And 47 previous complaints showing a pattern of behavior that can't be explained away. The chief pilot delivers the verdict. Captain Stone, you're being reassigned regional routes, shorter flights, no international authority, and you'll be flying as first officer, not captain, until you complete remedial training on crew resource management and professional conduct. Your seniority remains, but your command authority is suspended for 12 months. Richard's face goes red. This is outrageous. 28 years. 28 years of complaints we should have addressed earlier, the chief pilot says. You told a flight attendant she was replaceable. Turns out, Captain, everyone is replaceable, including you. Dismissed. That same day, Aria is called to Jennifer Morrison's office. She walks in nervous, prepared for the worst. But Jennifer stands, shakes her hand. Sit down, Aria, please. I'm not here to reprimand you, Jennifer says. I'm here to thank you and to apologize. We knew Richard Stone was a problem. We had complaints. We had reports. We didn't act. We let our best people suffer so our senior people could remain comfortable. That ends today. She slides an envelope across the desk. This is a formal commendation, a bonus equivalent to 2 months' salary, and a promotion to lead flight attendant. You'll train new crew members. You'll set the standard because you are the standard. Aria's hands shake slightly. I just did my job, ma'am. No, Jennifer says. You did more. You stood up when it was risky. You documented when it was easier to stay silent. You used the channel I gave you because you trusted that we'd listen. And we did. That's the airline I want to build. One where excellence matters more than seniority, where respect matters more than rank, where a flight attendant with 15 years can challenge a captain with 28 and be heard. Aria leaves the office 40 minutes later, commendation in hand, promotion confirmed, respect earned, not given, earned. Through 15 years of excellence, through documentation, through courage, through knowing her worth. 6 months later, Aria is training new flight attendants at the Paris hub, teaching them about safety, about passenger care, about documentation, about respect, and about knowing when to stand up, when to speak up, when to trust that the right people will listen. Richard Stone is flying regional routes, Boston to Pittsburgh, Cleveland to Detroit, short hops, no international prestige, no command authority. First officer to captains half his age. His union fought the demotion, lost, because 47 complaints and documented safety violations aren't a misunderstanding. They're a pattern, and patterns end careers. Michelle Laurent was promoted to captain, youngest in the Air Atlantic fleet, 32 years old, 4 stripes earned through competence, not just time. She flies international routes now, and she remembers what she learned from Flight 789. That silence protects the wrong people. That documentation matters, that speaking up is scary but necessary, and David Martinez still flies twice a month. Paris to New York to Paris, and every time Aria is working his flight, he makes sure to thank her, because he saw something that day. He saw a professional stand her ground against power and win, not through aggression, through documentation, through respect, through knowing that some people aren't replaceable, they're irreplaceable, and the airline knows the difference, because at 37,000 feet, power doesn't come from stripes on your shoulders. It comes from how you treat the people beside you. And when you forget that, when you tell someone they're replaceable, you might discover the hardest truth in aviation: everyone is replaceable, even captains, even you.